join it today here in Google for Real Estate. We're here live on Clubhouse every Wednesday, 9 to 10. I'm Derek Bixler, commercial and residential real estate agent of 18 years. Today, that commercial background will come into play a little bit because that's where I've done press releases the most. And residential real estate agent of 18 years, outdoor adventure sportsman, and Google marketing geek. In this room, we talk about that the rain is killing my outdoor adventure sportsman part too. So I'm dying. I don't think I've been on a hike in like a few days. Anyway, in this room, we talk about how to dominate Google local search and get business from our Google business profiles, as well as discuss other Google marketing and productivity tools, and sometimes Facebook or other digital marketing stuff. Replays are available on Clubhouse for 7 days after the live. After that, they're available on my website. Free reign to access everything there for now. Please come up to stage if you're here live. I like to answer questions. We have a portion of the show or whatever you want to call this that is ask anything you want to. So you have an opportunity to ask anything live and get questions answered. Or if you just want to come up and sit here and not say anything, that's fine too. Or if you have input on what we're talking about or an experience with it or an expertise in it, please chime in also. I'm not the knower of all things, so I like other people to chime in as well. And if you or somebody you know is in a different business or profession, specifically a local type business or profession, all the stuff that we talk about here can be translated and used for those businesses as well for the most part. All my links are in the chat. The replays, podcast links, discovery call if you need to hit me up is in the chat and above. So we'll get into it. Any news? What news? Not to kind of significant news because they are specific to Google Business Profile and they are in the edit profile tab, which are all your main settings, the only settings you have access to when you get unverified and suspended and whatnot. That's pretty much all you have. That's the stuff that Google cares about the most. And both of these things have to do with that tab. So kind of important in that respect, I guess, but not big, huge changes. So the one, if you saw my post yesterday, I think yesterday, the new parking attribute for real estate agent profiles. I don't know if I don't do a ton with other business types, but I've never seen the parking attribute as something on a real estate uh, Google business profile. So now if you go into your edit profile, you scroll the whole way down, there are things called attributes like woman owned, black owned, do you have wheelchair or accessible restrooms, what languages do you speak, so on and so forth. And every once in a while they add new ones. So this week is when I noticed it. There's a new parking attribute and it'll ask you 7 or 8 questions, something like that. Is there paid parking? Is there free parking? Is there on-street parking? Similar to in the MLS when it asks you what kind of parking is available at the house. It's kind of that kind of thing. So you just want to go in there and check yes or no to all the things, click save, and then you're good to go. And if you have never looked at those attributes before or said yes or no to the other ones, I would go into every single one of those attributes and say yes or no with the clarification. Don't run and do it yet. Don't click save. If there are certain ones in there that might be, you might not, I won't even go into it, but some people don't like to say yes or no, or I don't want to call that out or say anything about it. So if you don't want to say anything about it, yes or no, then just don't click either one, because once you click yes or no, like say you clicked yes and then you went back and you said, well, I don't want to say no, but I just don't want to say anything about that. You cannot remove it yourself. It either has, once you click one and save it, it has to be yes or no. And you can put a help ticket in and get that reset to nothing, but you know how help tickets with Google goes, whether that will work or not, how long it might take, that kind of thing. So definitely check your attributes. Make sure you say yes or no to all the ones you want to say yes or no to, particularly this new parking one. If you know your attributes are good already, this parking one would be new. It would only be available on physical location profiles. So if you're hiding your address, you don't have questions about the facility, like is there a wheelchair accessible restroom, and parking and things like that. So if you hide your address, you would not see this attribute. But if you are showing your address on your profile with a directions button, you should have this new parking attribute and just click on it, say yes or no, and then make sure all your other ones are good. and these do appear on your profile as like little embellishments, like little badges, kind of. So they make your profile look a little bit nicer. Some places it's just kind of a check mark when people are looking at your expanded about section or whatever. But the more fully you can be filled out, the better. Also, if somebody specifically searches woman owned realtor with a wheelchair accessible restroom that speaks Spanish, and that profile has all those things checked, then they might be shuffled up a little bit above the other person. Especially the language one. If you speak other languages, or you have people on your team that do, that you could at least get the call to somebody that does or something. Languages are huge. I'm jealous of people that speak lots of languages. The most I've had of a client was 6, and that was not, well, that person speaks like 3 or 4, I think, but her whole team spoke, I think, about 6. There was even one that wasn't in the list that they give you, but most are in there. Definitely Spanish is in there, and all the major ones. Um, and they keep adding ones too here and there. So check your attributes for sure. The language is one, because some people that speak Spanish or Italian, whatever, their whole phone might be set to translate everything, and their whole phone is in Spanish. So when they go to Google and type in realtor or real estate agent or whatever that is in Spanish, I'm pretty darn sure Google's going to look for one that says they speak Spanish. And now I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I would also call that is a unique selling proposition in itself, speaking another language. So if, like JM, didn't you just start doing videos in Spanish? He was used to me rambling. Doesn't Can't find the mic now. I think JM
Yes,
just yeah.
I
Go
was
for
on
it.
another page in front of it, but yes, I just did my first video in Spanish, actually second video in Spanish. So yes, and
Yeah, and didn't your coach encourage you to do that?
he did encourage me to do that. Um, and I've been hesitant, kind of one way or the other, to do them in Spanish or not do them in Spanish, but I really had it in the back of my mind for a while. So this brought it to the forefront. The coaching brought it to the forefront.
Yeah, that's great. And it speaks to that. It's a unique selling proposition. There's a market there, and that's a great thing to do. You'll hear even people in Content Club, they have started doing things in other languages. I think somebody started a whole new entity, or a new Instagram or TikTok or something that's all another language. Um, and so the riches are in the niches, and if there's a big enough population, well, obviously if it's something that there are 0 people, but if it's Spanish, holy crap, heck yeah, I'd be all over that all day long. Yeah, for sure. So there's a reason that that coach said it and everybody else says it, and there's a reason to put it on your Google business profile. So check out those languages for sure, and the parking attribute and all your other attributes. And remember, don't click yes or no and save it unless you're sure you want to say yes or no to it, because if you do, it might be hard to undo it and say nothing. So that's news. And then also in the edit profile tab, your special hours are in there, and Thanksgiving and Black Friday have just populated in there. So if you should be saying yes to every time Google sends you that email, or when you're in your profile every, I think it's 60 days before typically a holiday, it'll say, are you open on Thanksgiving or Black Friday or whatever? And you just go in there, click review. It'll populate with your usual business hours, and you click save. I would be open every darn holiday, um, unless you have a problem. Even Christmas and Thanksgiving, again, unless it becomes a problem. Christmas, I've never gotten a call on Christmas. People kind of respect that day. Easter, for sure, be open. People do stuff on Easter. They don't respect it as much. We still kind of work a lot on Easter. I like open houses on Easter Sunday, actually. They always seem to be kind of good. And I always seem to get Google calls on Easter because nobody else is answering the phone. Sometimes people are in town to get together, or they're all dressed up and, well, let's go stop at this open house before we go to the diner for breakfast after church or whatever. So be open on holidays for sure. Maybe there's some, maybe, I know, use your own judgment, obviously. And if you have a physical location, then you do need to be a little bit more aware and say open or closed. Because if you have a physical location, like if somebody just pulled up your Google Business profile, drove to you thinking you're open and coming in the office, and then you're closed, then they hit Google and like edit profile, change hours. That's not a great sign to Google that your profile is accurate if somebody's changing your hours for you or whatever. So if you have a physical location, maybe a little bit different, but generally I would be open most holidays. Any questions on those two things, the parking attribute or the special hours? Cool. All right, I'll open it up for Ask Me Anything, Google Business Profile or Local Services ads or Google Ads. And if there isn't anything, I will move on to today's topic. Anything, anybody got anything?
Derek, I can hop in with question. Good morning, everyone. Um,
Morning.
Good morning. So my question is, I've just changed brokerages, okay? And I have an LLC that my company is in. It's called Global Vention, and my LLC is addressed to a UPS post office box. Now, I am hesitant on changing my address, but I need to on my Google profile because it's currently addressed to my old brokerage. And now I'm wondering, I do have an office that I can have access to. Okay, so it's a gal that I kind of partnered with, sort of thing. We're not partnered, but in any event, I signed in under her and she has an office and I could use it. Now, it's 30 minutes from my house. It's not in my geographic farm. And yet it's on the east side of Salt Lake where I work. It's the area that I work, but it's not my target area. So I'm wondering, Derek, lately Google's been a little not too friendly with me, and I certainly don't want to be suspended. So I'm wondering what would be the best practice to hide my address and have it here at my house, which I'm really nervous about doing, putting my address out there, although anybody could find where I live. I mean, nothing's private anymore, it seems. Um, and what I'd like to do, because when they start to ask me for, well, give us your this and that and all these different proofs, well, I have all the proofs to the post office box. And the post office box is a physical address, not a P.O. Box 575. It's a actual physical address, and then it's Suite 292 for my post office box. Wondering what to do there, Derek.
Awesome question. And I just was on the phone with somebody yesterday, and I might have a very easy solution for you. Some solutions might involve the re-verification, but all right. So the first question is, where do you want to rank? And in your situation, it sounds like there are going to be three choices. And you've already narrowed down or eliminated one of them probably, but the three choices would be your new brokerage office, your old brokerage office, or your house. And the way that you would use your old brokerage, so let's eliminate the one. You're not using the new brokerage. That's 30 minutes away from the farm area where you want to rank. That's too far away if you have any prayer of ranking where you want to rank. So let's eliminate that one. So now you have your old brokerage or your house. How do you use your old brokerage? You hide the address there. You leave it verified there. You simply hide the address, which hopefully doesn't trigger anything. Again, last four episodes I've been talking about heightened scrutiny of profiles, so anything can happen, but I don't. That's not a huge change. And it's less of a change than changing the address, certainly. So, and if it triggered something, then you just got to verify the way you would have in the first place. So, um, choose between your house and the old. Is it fine to rank around the old office, or would the house be better?
Oh no, my old office is 5 minutes from my house. It's in my farms. But don't forget the post office box, which is down the street.
I mean, if they're all pretty similar locations, all within like 5 minutes of
They
each
are the post
other,
office box, old
I
brokerage, and my homes all within the well, the old brokerage is in the center, and each are 5 minutes both directions. Very close proximity.
Yeah, I would probably just hide it. I wouldn't rock the boat, and unless if it does trigger something, then you are where you are. Maybe you change it to the PO box or the house at that point because I'm changing it at this point. I have to, but it sounds like you could probably just hide the. You just click the edit profile tab. You go down to the location, the address thing. You click on it. You click hide address. You click save, and you pray to God it doesn't trigger anything. The other thing the only other change you'd have to make is obviously in your description. I wouldn't worry about like posts and updates and things if the brokerage is in there. That's similar to social media. There's going to be old stuff that has old stuff on it. Um, but disclaimer: check all your local laws, brokerage, blah blah blah. But your description, maybe sometimes people put the brokerage in their description, so that if it's in there, you might have to change that. And the other place would be in your name if you're Cindy Oriona, comma, realtor dash what used to be what was it,
Berkshire.
Berkshire Hathaway? Yeah.
Uh,
Um, then you need to delete at least delete the brokerage part, if not change it to the new one. Um,
so what
if
about the
Go
post
ahead.
office box? It's a physical address. Would do you not recommend using a UPS physical address?
Is there permanent signage there
There's
for
UPS
you?
store. No, there's not.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Oh,
They don't like shared workspaces or PO boxes or any of that kind of stuff in
okay.
general.
So
Um,
I'm
they
thinking the
almost
house.
prefer a house, yeah, a home-based business to some no name, like could be some nefarious act, whatever. Yeah, you get it.
Okay, I'm thinking probably my house would be the best and hide the address.
You will have to verify for sure if you do that
Oh,
and do the video. So if you do what I'm saying, you're as far as Google's concerned, you're still verified and sitting at your old brokerage. But since you're hiding the address, it doesn't show to anybody. It doesn't say you're at that address. It's essentially the same as if you were at your house almost. So, and hiding the address typically does not trigger a re-verification. So that method might save you the re-verification, and you're still ranking around the area you want to rank around. So if it were me, that's what I would do. I would hide the address, and then I would wait. The name, you're definitely going to have to change. You don't want to do both those things on the same day. And feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk about this more. But you don't want to do both
yes.
things the same day. I would space them out for anybody listening. Like a lot of changes right now, especially location and name being the two biggest things in there. I wouldn't be changing on the same day probably. So pick one of them, do it. Maybe the name is first priority. I don't know. Pick one, I guess.
Okay.
Change it. Wait at least a couple months, or not months, at least a couple weeks,
Uh
if not
huh.
maybe a month, and then do the other one. I'm just really, especially when I'm advising people, like with my own stuff, I would probably just do it and deal with it if it messed it up. But if I'm advising, I'd say wait a little bit longer. Go ahead.
Okay. So what will happen? I'm on my page right now, and it's Cindy Ariona, Salt Lake City real estate agent, Berkshire Hathaway. What about if I just delete Berkshire Hathaway right now? Is that going to change anything on to Google? If I just remove the name being part of my name.
That would be step one. So if you did that, which is fine if you do that, then you just need to wait. I'd say at least 2 weeks
Okay.
to change to hide the address or do anything with the address. And again, I
Okay.
would just hide the address then.
Okay, hon. Now that brings me to the appointments, and I don't want to take. There's a lot of people here that probably have questions, but I just noticed under appointments there's Berkshire Hathaway's link. Got to get that changed. Okay, Derek. I thank you. You're so awesome, and I'm gonna make an appointment with you, friend.
You
Thanks.
bet. And yeah, get yourself a Calendly account. Nobody will ever do it, so it doesn't really matter. You'll set it up, you put it in there, and unless you have a giant YouTube channel, it'll probably never get used. Here and there, and when it does happen, you're like, holy crap! And then even 9 times out of 10, it turns out to be some scammer or bot or something. But good too. It is one of 8 tabs, I guess. So it's one of 8 tabs that good to have it filled up for anybody that hasn't already. So even and you could use just a contact page if you have a website and you have a contact page on your website and you don't want to have Calendly or something, like at least do the minimum. Put that in there, and typically Google will accept that as like a booking scheduling link. Be better if it actually was a booking link, but you could use a contact us if anybody needs a hack for that. Anybody else
Okay.
have any other? Go ahead.
Oh, so then quickly in closing, sorry.
Yeah.
I removed the Berkshire Hathaway. And should I just leave it alone and just do that today and wait, or should I put the Calendly link in also right now?
All right. I'm still don't. Are you like sitting there waiting to push save?
Uh huh.
All right. Don't push yet. So I
Okay.
would. I'm looking at yours now. I
Thank you, Derek.
would. The Salt Lake City real estate agent is that's the part that would mess you up if ever you did. Do you need to have the new brokerage in the name, or does it
I don't
not
think I
necessarily
do.
need to?
I
Okay.
don't think I do.
I would probably just change it to Cindy.
You know what? I'm not seeing the that booking thing. I'm in edit my profile, and maybe it's under more.
It would be in a whole different tab, like back where the main tabs, edit
Okay.
profile, edit services, bookings, Q&A, add update, all those things. But I
Okay.
would, yeah, right now, I guess I would keep it minimal.
Uh
And
huh.
I would just, yeah, just
Yeah.
delete the dash Berkshire Hathaway and save that. There's a little bit more I would do if they weren't being crazy scrutinous right now. I would just change it to Cindy Uriona, comma, realtor is the prettiest, and it wouldn't be keyword stuffy, and it would be the most compliant, frankly, per
Okay.
Google. But just, it's not a person watching it, and it's a computer, and it just is
Uh huh.
changes and like too much of a change that triggers that. So yeah, I would.
Okay.
So
There's
yeah,
no
just
save
delete that.
button. Okay. Thanks, hon. I don't see a save button. Do you just put close and it's?
Sometimes it's hidden because you might have to zoom out on your browser or a lot of
Oh,
time or your window might not be maximized. If you're an Apple
okay.
person and you like to have no windows maximized ever, it drives me bonkers. Never, ever, ever. And you might not be one of them. It's just my own little rant. But Apple users
Okay.
love to never maximize a window. Is that what it was? Did you find it?
Oh shoot, I didn't. But
Or you
yeah.
might have to zoom out on a PC. You would click Control, and then you can like zoom out of a window or
Or
whatever,
whatever.
and then
What's
you
it?
might see the save button.
Uh huh. Control what does it zoom out?
Oh, it looks like you did it.
Oh, does it? Okay, cool. Yeah. So there's not a save, but yeah. Oh,
It took
does it?
effect also publicly already.
Oh, it still shows
So
Berkshire on mine.
if you re
I did refreshed it twice, 3 times. Still shows Berkshire.
huh, it
Huh.
looks good on my end.
Huh. Okay. I'll go with your end. Okay.
Yeah, just
Thanks,
check it
Derek.
again then.
Okay, hon.
And hopefully it doesn't, just because it's good now does not, don't get your hopes up. But if a week or two passes, you're probably okay. But then a second thing does compound it, like, okay, you changed that, now you're changing this. So wait, I'd say 2 weeks. Mark your calendar for 2 rooms from now, and then maybe that room this could be a good case study actually. You changed your name minimally, and then in 2 weeks we will go and hide the address unless you change unless you there's a different thing you want to do by then. We'll hide the address and then we'll wait and see if any of that triggers a re-verification and keep our fingers crossed.
Okay. All right. Well, I have a new pair of tennis shoes, so if I need to re-verify, I can run around to do all that stuff you told us to do. Okay.
There you
Thanks,
go.
Derek.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions about that or anything else? All right, we'll jump into it. Jose, you're still here, right? You're just hanging out for 30 minutes while we talk about Google stuff. So today we're talking about press releases 101, how to get in the news for free. Obviously, there's lots of reasons to be in the news, just to get those eyeballs and then people reaching out to you. But the reason I care and the reason I'm having a room about it is because it is potential to get a backlink, meaning your website URL, agentderek.com, on somebody else's website, penlive.com, thesentinel.com. Those are local newspaper, or I think our newspapers print just Sundays now, so actual print is kind of gone, but those are the main ones. And other places, business journals, those kind of things, getting backlinks on local type websites, or even if you do a guest blog post on a big HVAC company's website or something, that can help you too. Local type links on websites, publications, big publications probably being the biggest ones. But getting your link on those places helps your website rank better, and in turn, helps your Google Business Profile rank better. So you have your website ranking better and your Google Business Profile ranking better. So that's why I care about it the most. But Jose has done it in the past, and I'll let him intro himself a little bit. He's done it in the past as a profession. He was talking about it in a room last week, and we've talked about it a little bit before, and I was like, that's a great thing. It's not that hard to do, so I'm actually adding it as a service, a standard press release. Um, and whether Jose helps me with those or not, we haven't ironed that out yet. But it's not a super hard thing to do. So we're going to talk about how to do press releases, a standard kind of type of press release. And again, commercial sales and leases is where my knowledge and experience comes in the most. But we'll talk about generally press releases, what are the uses, why you would put one out, and the key elements of it. I have 9 key elements here in my list, and I've got a template if anybody needs it that we'll hand out. And I've got a few specific questions for Jose, but he'll be kind of going into a few of these things as we go anyway, and maybe we'll answer those questions I have as we go. So first, I'll let Jose tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you grew up. Did you grow up in the area you're in
I
now?
did not.
And tell us your background in public relations and stuff, and then I'll kind of we'll start going into the key
Well,
elements.
my name is Jose Manuel de Jesus. You guys all know me as JM, and part of my other life involves being a publicist, and my motto is getting people, places, and things in the news. And right now, like my practice is pretty slim pickings. It used to be very pungent on the corporate side. Back in the days where I was making a killing doing this stuff, and now those days are gone. Now I have one. I'm lucky I have one client. She is a concert pianist and composer from originally born in India. Now she lives here in New Jersey, in Verona, and has for quite some time with her husband and daughter. And just to show you the power of PR, I placed a story in the Jersey Journal, which is a pretty fairly popular newspaper here in Hudson County, and the electronic digital version of it, which is NJ.com, which covers a few papers also. Um, uh, and first actually came out in the electronic version, and then it was republished in the Jersey Journal, and just in time for the my client's concert at Carnegie Hall. And just coincidentally, she happens to be the only Indian artist to ever play her own show at Carnegie Hall. She's now done it 4 times, headed toward number 5, which is clearly a world record. I don't know why she doesn't let me do a Guinness thing, but she just doesn't like the idea. And I placed that press release, and the press release created an article, and the article was just in time to help her sell out. her room at Carnegie Hall, which made me feel so wonderful. I love it. I love to do this work. Same way I love to the thought of helping people find their forever homes and making them happy in that perspective, in their family perspective. I grew up in New York. I lived and worked in four of the five boroughs. A lot of hood stuff. South Bronx, El Barrio, and Manhattan, Spanish Harlem, some people call it. Um, as well as some time in Queens, as well as later on as a young adult in Brooklyn, and got into PR. My original dream was to be the nation's first Puerto Rican network anchor, and that dream went down in flames. But along the way, I picked up some skills that I use to this day, which are the Associated Press style of story and press release writing, and that's really what I use as a guideline for the most part to write my press releases, because I write them all like news stories, and that came after the first Gulf War. I believe I got let go from Fox News, and met a gentleman one day at a journalist conference, and he said, "What are you doing now? I could sure use you in my office." I said, "Well, I'm not doing quite anything other than looking for work here." And he said, "Well, why don't you come meet me and I'll buy you breakfast?" And I have a strict policy of never turning down a free meal. And so I went to see the gentleman. He owned a small PR agency called Wiskovich Associates. And that was the beginning of my PR career. He had his team working on a press release for Pepsi. And the girl who was working on it was so overwhelmed. She really wasn't the writer type. I mean, it takes all types. I mean, some of us are writers, some of us aren't. Some of us have other talents, talent of persuasion, which comes in very handy in PR. And he said, "Do something with this." He gives me the press release, and looked at it. "Okay, can I sit at this computer?" He said, "Yeah, go ahead." Sat at the computer, tapped a bunch of times, and about a half hour, 35 minutes later, I walk back over to him and say, "Here's your release." And he looks at it and he says, "Wow, this is ready to go. This is ready to go to the client. That's amazing. We've been working on this for 3 weeks." And I said, "Well, this is what I do, Mr. Wiskovich." And lo and behold, next thing you know, I had a job and I was handling the Pepsi Cola account at the agency. And that was the kind of well, not really the beginning, but kind of the official beginning of my PR career. My initial beginning was I used to work at a club called SOBs down on Houston and Varick Street, New York, and I ran the security staff there. And one day I got the opportunity to write and translate a press release into Spanish, and lo and behold, one of the local papers, actually a paper in Connecticut, picked it up word for word and published it. And that was really the official beginning of my PR career. But later, I came into this with Mr. Wiskovich, and became a account executive at his agency, and that's really how I kind of started my PR career. Mind you, it would have never started if I did not have the rules of the Associated Press to write a story with in my back pocket, and that's what I would kind of recommend to everyone. Understand the AP style, and if you understand the Associated Press style, and sometimes you got to refer to their manual because things get a little complicated, but for the most part, if you understand the style, you can write yourself a decent press release. And that's kind of how I got started. Later on, I moved to another agency called Uniworld Group. Uniworld eventually became part of one of the bigger ad agency groups, and kind of went from there. From there, I decided I was going to form my own agency, and I did. And that's how Quadrant Two Public Relations was born. Although it was initially was Quadrant Two Media, it was just a name I kind of pilfered from um, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People book by Dr. Stephen Covey. And Quadrant Two, if you understand time management, according to the way he explains it in the book, is that which is important but not urgent. So we do a lot of things in our lives which are very important, but not necessarily urgent. It's not going to be the end of the world if you don't do them right away. But based on that concept, I formed my agency. So I try to be very proactive with clients and so forth. So that kind of in a roundabout, twisted way, kind of led me to where I am today. As the PR business is kind of tough as well. My business hit a plateau, and so I decided, man, I got to start looking for other things to do, and that brought me to real estate. I had touched on real estate much earlier when I was 19 years old and about to start college. I touched on real estate, and it kind of turned me off, so I kind of turned away from it. But I had been licensed in New York City at the age of 19, or New York State at the age of 19. So all of that together kind of brings me to today, my non illustrious today, and which brings me to learn from you guys. You guys have taught me so much. I just love you guys. I love you guys. The real estate all day room, real estate from the heart. It's just fantastic, and I try to be there every day, Monday to Friday with you guys. So that's kind of my story.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you a part of the communities, and especially today, because bring a special expertise that can help all of us, and especially if you're a commercial agent for sure, and even if you're a residential agent, maybe you do a commercial deal every once in a while, and even residential agents do events, which we'll talk about as a good thing to do them for.
Yes.
But we're glad to have you with us and have the expertise. And I'm actually going to change up the order I was going to do things here. I was going to do the 9 key elements or of the press release and then kind of go down them and get Jose's input or if they're needed or not, or what's the best way to frame them or whatever. But I think I'm going to go right into my questions that I have because there's a couple things that I definitely want to know. And I think it'll flesh out some other things. And then at the end, I'll kind of run through the key elements, or I can uh, give the document out to people, the template, basically for for any press release, but also a commercial press release specifically. But okay, so the first thing I had here was to talk about why you would, the uses for them, the reasons you would put one out. The ones that have any prayer, you could send anything to publications and they could just turn it down and not publish it. Even good stuff they may not publish, but the best stuff to do things for that you have that they like to get, and that you might have a prayer of getting published. So events, the example you used was an event to help sell out Carnegie Hall, I think you said it was.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was an event. Our events, I've got charitable events in my list, community events, client events, really anything that the public might care about, I guess. What can you expand on as far as events go? And is that true? They like event stuff?
Oh, sometimes they don't care. There's so much stuff going on. I mean, I don't know. On this side of the pond, there's so much stuff going on. The events are just coming out of their noses, So sometimes they don't care. You really have to kind of give it a sexy appeal for a writer or a reporter to take it up if you really want your event covered. My client just won a very prestigious award, Jazz Rose Award, and that has gotten very little coverage. The rest of her concert and performance schedule has gotten it, but that's what she paid for to with the uh, with the grant, to be able to go on the road. But the event itself of her winning that, it really hasn't. And so far, I mean, we really, it's hard to get her musical events covered, her concerts and so forth. I mean, some of it depends. It depends on where they're playing. Sometimes, we're looking if we get it picked up by a local station who might interview her live and in studio, as was the case in Washington D.C. on CBS. And but events. This is one way to kind of get attention to them. But it's only one way, and it's difficult. Which is why PR becomes a little expensive, because if you don't do it yourself, you got to have somebody who is pitching your event, your news item, and that may or may not be successful depending on the news day, and it may have nothing to do with the person who's pitching it. On a day like today, for instance, you got a war going on in the Middle East. You know, yeah, one country who bombed another country overnight, and that's going to dominate the news. Second place, or maybe at best tie, is the vice presidential debate, and the fact that we have a presidential election going on. So that is another element that's going to be competing with you. So all these things, you have to understand that they're competing with you uh, when you do this stuff. But nonetheless, you should try. You should try. There's the good thing to note is that there's a publication for everything, a blog for everything. So there's a blog out there for your news item. So you should find that and keep ringing that bell.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something. I think nationally, yes, that's gonna be hard to get picked up somewhere and for something to happen that way. And but locally, not as hard, I don't think. Especially there are certain things, again, like commercial real estate deals that they all, at least here locally, the smaller papers, the local papers and publications, they have the business section, and they put every commercial, almost assuredly, if you give them a press release for a commercial transaction, it goes in there, especially if you do it the right way. And sometimes they'll call you and ask you questions or follow-ups or whatever. And then also events, also same thing there. They got events pages that all these little blogs and smaller papers and things that have it. I don't think you're going to be on the front page of anything ever, but in that dedicated section, it's kind of, they all need fodder, just like I need to have a room every weekend and come up with a topic, just like Michelle B needs something to write about in her blog every week or twice a week or every day. It seems like she writes a lot, but um, so they all need fodder. So if you can find the places that need the fodder and what fodder they want or need and like, I think you do have some kind of chance, especially if you stick to the things that they definitely want to. I've got a follow up question of it, but before we move to that, I want to talk about the reasons to put a press release out again. So for all the people in this room, it's mostly real estate agents, and we'll keep it to real estate related. Other than events and commercial real estate deals, which I've already brought up, can you think of any other reasons
Sure.
um, relevant to real estate agents?
Well, I mean, every once in a while, the press will pick up a personality story and do a bio type story on somebody. And certainly the people in this room are good for that. And then the other thing is that, let's see, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a moment. Um,
I like that one. I just wrote it down. I didn't think about the
yeah,
bio and human
when
interest
you,
piece. Is that
when
what you would
you,
call that?
yeah, when you, uh, again, this really has a lot to do with what's going on in the news and what the publication or media outlet is covering currently. For the guys in this room, I think it's important that you put out information, news, and releases, especially about the way you give back. If you're doing things to give back to the community and that are helping the community in any way, that are boosting the community and its morale in any way, that's an important time to put out a press release. You know, I was reminded of Michelle Meinhardt yesterday when I was at the I was at the press Chamber of Commerce meeting, and two of the guys there were the guys who ran the local children's the coaches for the children's soccer league, 5 to 14. So they of course they were looking for sponsors, and they had some in their soccer field. But it reminded me of Michelle and some of the things that she does. But there are always other things that sometimes maybe even of more close significance to a community that really should be written about. And the first person to write about them should be you or your publicist, and write and talk to the local publishers about it and local editors about it. Should be you or your publicist.
Perfect segue. So let's take that example of Michelle Meinhardt, who she does the scholarship thing and has billboards up. She's got a truck, all the stuff. She does charitable stuff. Something newsworthy, I would think, if she put a press release out, somebody would pick it up locally, maybe multiple people, yada yada. So in that case, Michelle Meinhardt, she gives away scholarships every year. Um, who if she wanted to do it herself, or she said to her assistant, I want to do a press release about this thing, and I want to get it in let's pretend she's not in Atlanta, because that might be harder. That might be as hard as nationally to get something, because even that events or charitable section might be jammed with stuff there. But let's pretend she's not there. But who would she, at the places, who does she reach out to? Who does she find? Obviously, that is part of the work of the publicist, and that's similar to a real estate agent. They know the people to talk to, where to get answers, who to call to get things done, all those kinds of things. So that's part of a publicist. Like, well, I can go get a template for how to write a press release and the 9 elements of a press release from ChatGPT. But I don't know who to call and who to reach out to, and I don't have a relationship with these people either, even if I can figure it out. So, but all that aside, let's pretend she wants to do it herself. I just want to try to figure out how to send out press releases
Sure.
whenever I want to. Who do you send it to? How do you find them? And maybe best ways to approach them.
Well, there's always a section editor. So you look for the editor or the writer that covers the particular section that you're doing an event in, or making a contribution in. And then, you should not just tell them about it. You can, and I think that that's important too, but you should have your press release tell them, you know. And there are 5 or 6 things that I personally just always have in my press releases. Okay. Um, First of all, there are rules to follow that editors, they kind of look at it. I mean, they look at all kinds of stuff. They get all kinds of stuff, even flyers that are in total disarray or whatever with artwork. But here's how I break it down. First of all, try to follow the AP style. If you can't follow the AP style, you don't have to. Sometimes feature writers are less strict when writing fluffy pieces, which can deviate from the style a bit. But here's really the main things that you should keep in mind. Every release and every story should have a lead sentence. This is a sentence that has 32 words or less, um, telling the who, what, where, when, and why, and sometimes how of the subject matter of the release. So you encapsulate the entire release in that first sentence, and you make it 32 words or less, so it's not in danger of becoming a run-on. And then, the other factoids become part of uh, a pyramid, which you really have to invert Is an inverted pyramid of facts. So the more important facts go up top, and with paragraphs in descending order of importance. Okay, so that's the inverted pyramid, and you might have 4 to 10 or more graphs depending on how many facts your story have or your event have. Again, in descending order of importance, and then at the very end, you really should have, if you're especially if you're a business, you really should have a boilerplate paragraph. And the boilerplate paragraph is a paragraph of facts that you might use over and over again in your press releases for a while until you change it or give it a review. And that factual information about you, your organization, the event, that is usually the last graph of a press release, that you'll use that again and again in your press releases. So even if you send another press release, you can use that boilerplate paragraph the second time. And then to make sure that the editor knows you're finished, you put a hashtag at the bottom of the release in the center of the page. That's how they know that there's no more. There's no second page there. So that's kind of how a very simple formula for writing those stories, and then the rest is the pitch. And that's a whole other, we could do a whole other room on that. But really, what I would recommend with the pitch of stories is to keep it short. The brevity is better. These are very busy people. They have a lot of stuff, a lot of mail, a lot of faxes to go through. And in a newsroom, they're actually listening to a police scanner, which is what I used to do when I was back in the newsroom. My newsroom days working as an assignment editor. You listen to a scanner, as well as read the wires and get faxes and read them and answer the phone all at the same time. So that's why there's a clear need for brevity and clarity when you call these people. Get to the damn point quick. Otherwise, they will not have time to talk to you and hang up on you. You can count on that. So that's in a nutshell, that's what I would say, how to handle a press release for a residential agent who might be doing, some things out in the field that are a little that are beyond the real estate, and that are beneficial to society in general, and beneficial to the community.
So one thing you said, you brought up the editor as one of the people to find, reach out to, send your stories to. Would you also possibly reach out to reporters?
Yes,
Or because that's
orders.
how I like, definitely in the past there's a couple of the Business Journal reporters, and they
Yeah,
know they get a story every once in a while. Sometimes they'll reach out if they're short on stories. Hey, do you have something I could write about? Or if you have a story, you send it directly to that writer, and then they call you to get a couple quotes or do their thing. Is that a good thing too? And could you just, even if you didn't have a relationship, you could just, because they put their contact information out there, or you can
right.
even, yeah, right.
Yeah, right. That's right. Sometimes you just look and see who wrote what in the previous day's newspaper, or the previous week's newspaper, and say, oh, this seems like a similar type of story. Let me reach out to this person, and reach out to that writer and directly, and pitch them, But
Yeah,
again,
because they need the fodder too. They need to turn something in every week. They need it even more, so they might be even
they
more
need it,
motivated,
but
maybe.
you got to be. There's so much stuff out there. You remember, we live in such a information dense society, that these folks have more than enough stuff to write upon. Trust me, if they don't get your piece, they'll get somebody else's. So that's why it's good to get yours in there. But um, um, brevity, clarity, and quickness are key. Let these folks know what you want and why you want it, and when you want it, quick.
Yeah, yeah, you have to make it easy for them. The easier you make it for them to do your thing, the more chance you have of it getting done. If it's all nothing's provided and it's hard for them to put a story together unless it's an awesome thing that they're like, I got to do this. I don't care what I have to do this. But the easier you make it for them, the more chance you have of getting it done, the better the structure, all those things. I think also locally, again, when it's a small publication like my local business journal, which covers the region, a whole bunch of counties, but I've got multiple people there I could reach out to directly, and it would probably something would happen on it. And sometimes you can find in your local area we have. I think it's called cool Spaces. There's a section in one of the home and garden section of the paper or the blog or whatever you want to call it now. Um, that is Cool Spaces. I've had multiple properties on there. I sold a house that was the first ski resort around, I wouldn't call it a resort, ski mountain around here, Blair Mountain. And it closed when the other one opened long ago, and it was turned into a house. So it was kind of a house slash lodge still with a pond and blah, blah, blah. So I got that published in the Cool Spaces. Um, what did one was a church that was a house. Usually it's something like that, but even in our company used to dominate the cool spaces section, just because we knew about it and knew if you send it to them and you give them all the things they want, they'll probably put it in there. That's one thing one of my former brokerages were really good about getting in the news, and
Should
just
be
they
interesting to someone other than you.
what's that?
It should have appeal to someone other than you.
Yes, that's a
Should be,
perfect point.
it should be it should be interesting in general, and it should have some stuff that more than a fair share of people will find curious, at the very least. So that's very important, and that's what makes for a cute story that editors will pick up.
Yeah, and then when it comes to more matter of fact things, so stories, you got to have a story, obviously, or nobody cares. The writers, the editors, nobody cares. They don't want to put it in there. For things like commercial real estate press releases, which I've done a million of these things, they all almost always get picked up, definitely locally, nationally, unless it's a huge deal. Like then they're not going to be in national stuff. I have had it stuff in national if it's a big enough deal, but. Um, they almost always do. So if anybody in here, or if you do a commercial deal, and that doesn't mean like I sold a 4 unit apartment building, that doesn't impact anybody. Nobody cares about that. But a commercial deal where like so and so has expanded their space and they're going to be using the new facility to do this and that, there's a section in all our papers here and in most papers in the business section for kind of like real estate deals almost. So I would definitely look into that. If you have commercial real estate deals happening,
Yeah.
it's pretty simple. The template is blank tenant or buyer. We're going to do tenant and landlord. Pretend this is a commercial lease press release. Uh, Tenant has leased blank square feet of warehouse space or office space or retail space or whatever from landlord at address. The space will be used for insert story there. CEO or title of person, whatever. CEO of tenant said, get a short quote there. CEO of landlord said, get a short quote there, and that could vary a little bit who the quotes come from. Could be from the agent, also possibly. And keep in mind when you send these press releases in, they may cut stuff out. They might publish some of it, not all of it. They might change something. So just be prepared for that too. But CEO of tenant said, CEO of landlord said, and then at the end of it, landlord's agent, or yeah, insert landlord's agent with landlord's brokerage represented the landlord, and tenant's agent with tenant's brokerage name represented the tenant in the transaction. So you're getting your name in there. A lot of times around here, at least, you can insert some contact info, which is where your website URL. That's the important thing here. I haven't talked about that this whole time, but anytime you're putting a press release out, you want your website on there for sure, whether it's printed, online, anything, if possible, in your contact info. Include your website for sure, and um, try to get it in there, included in there.
That's the
But
stuff
so
that goes
that's
with
it.
the boilerplate paragraph, by the way, Derek. That's the stuff I would put in the boilerplate paragraph, because that stuff would generally just always go there, about your company. And
Yep.
if you're changing what you're doing, you still have that. I remember here in, well, not here, but I forgot what town. I think it was Jersey City. A guy bought an old factory, and he was putting his chocolate company in there. And the thing that made the chocolates interesting was that they were all cannabis infused. And so, of course, everybody wanted to read about that and find out what they were going to do. People who represented them were a law firm that was run by the former governor. Um, so it's very, in all, it was a very interesting story. So, you try to be, not everybody's going to have that kind of subject matter, but you're going to try to beef it up with, interesting facts as much as you can.
And then so I'm keeping tabs here. So I have, and I've been adding a couple elements to a press release to this list as we've been going here because I thought I had a pretty good one, but then you said a couple things. One thing you said, you told me what the hashtag thing was. I always see that. I never knew what it was. I always delete it every time. And you're the first person that has, and I'm surprised reporters have never like said to me or like I don't know, but the hashtag thing, I was like, why? What the F is with that? So that's what the triple, I use a lot of times I see a triple hashtag, but is it just one? Or
Yeah.
are you supposed to do a triple hashtag? What?
Yes. If you're going to do more than one page, you put more in capital letters at the bottom of the page and then parenthesize it, right? So that way, that tells people that there's another page coming. And then if that's the end of it, then you put a hashtag, or three hashtags, and that
Gotcha.
to do it,
And
to
by
let.
hashtags, we mean literally just the number symbol, three, one, or
Hmm.
two. I guess they just do three, so it's more obvious. You can maybe make it
Yeah,
bigger,
that's
or
it. It's over.
again, the easier you make it on them, right?
That's the end. That means that's the end.
And then the only item I have after that now in my list, and actually, let's go back to the list, make sure, and then I'll do the last thing. Headline. Do you include a headline?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
Doesn't make sense in
headline.
the commercial real estate deal, obviously. There's not going to be a headline and a story. But do you typically, when you're sending a story, maybe this is more
Absolutely.
for a story than a press release, but you include a headline?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You include a headline. On the left side margin, you write press release, and then for immediate release on the line below, because you want the press to know that it's to go out immediately. It's not embargoed till whatever day or two later. And then on the right hand margin, you put in your contact information, contact J.N. De Jesus, Quadrant 2 Public Relations, and my phone number and email address. So you would put, Derek, and your phone number and email address right across from the two lines that say press release for immediate release. And then just below that, by a couple of lines, you would write in your headline. And the different people have different headline writing styles. Mine always has two elements to it. So I have one big headline and then one sub headline right underneath it. And then
Gotcha.
you
Yep.
have, then you have the body of the press release, which includes the date and locator. Whatever, 2nd of October, and then in parentheses, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or wherever you are. Um, and then right on that same line, you start writing the press release. That's where you put in the press release text right after that.
Gotcha. Awesome. So you said the subheadline. So we got the headline, you got your subheadline, we got our date line, which is the start of it. Where does that first lead sentence come in? Right after, is that the first thing that would be right
It,
after that
it
date line?
follows the locator. So wherever
Okay,
you are, it just starts right after that, right after the locator.
perfect. And then you have the meat of it. Do you have an opening paragraph, or is that what
Yeah,
that lead sentence is?
the lead sentence. Again, for me, I am a fairly strict adherer to the Associated Press style. It's 32 words or less, which detail the who, what, where, when, why, and how of any story, of any press release, and who, what, where, when, why, and sometimes how. Sometimes you don't have room for how, or it's just not appropriate in the sentence structure. And then you start writing your descending inverted pyramid with the main fact just below the headline, and so on. A little less important just below that, a little less important just below that, and so on until the end of the paragraph. Excuse me, until the end of the release.
Gotcha. That's interesting to me. So when you get into the meat of the story, they want you to put the most exciting, the best parts, the most important parts at the beginning, and
Yeah,
put
and
all, and bury the rest of it. That's
you want
interesting to
that
me.
too. Yeah, because like you said, sometimes they alter it. They cut it. They cut out pieces. So you don't want them to cut out the more interesting parts because you put it down at the bottom of the story, to the bottom of the release. You want it up at the top.
Gotcha. Or they just get bored and don't read the rest.
Right, right. So you want to have the most interesting factoids up top, and that that will make sure that the more important facts of your particular press release get read by the editors first.
Yeah, that makes sense, totally. So we got headline, subheadline, dateline, the first lead sentence, 32 words or less, opening paragraph, the main story, blah blah blah, which includes quotes, right? They like to have
Yeah,
quotes, is that true?
yeah, that does include quotes. That does include the
And
quote.
if you need quotes, obviously you just reach out. Like in commercial deals, I had a boilerplate email that I would send to the landlord or the seller and the tenant or the buyer, and just say, hey, we're putting a press release out about this. Sometimes also I will also point out sometimes the tenant or buyer or landlord or whoever does not want to be mentioned in it. In which case, the more people that are mentioned, the better. I think for the press release, they don't like saying an unknown thing will not do this. However, I've gotten ones published without that, but you do need to
Not
ask the
always.
people.
Yes, not always. They may not have room on
True.
the page for that. So make sure you put in the most important quotes: the CEO, uh, the agent involved, or whoever is involved in what's going on in the commercial deal. Um, don't try to get everybody in; it just won't work. It
What's a
won't.
good length for a quote? Two sentences? A sentence?
Oh, I'd say two, maybe three sentences max, but usually two.
Yeah,
Then
sounds about right.
you break it up. Said so and so, title at the firm, and then they finish their quote, their sentence quote, their quote with another sentence.
Gotcha. So you kind of they've got a couple quotes within the body of the paragraphs, the
Yeah, it
body of the
gives you an
release.
opportunity to identify who the person that's being quoted is without, starting a whole new paragraph. Or even if you do start a new paragraph, you complete it with the secondary aspect of the quote of their quote. It's almost one thing, so it still becomes one thing.
Yep, I love that. So quotes, and I think I've been told anyway by the one firm I worked at, it was a international company, and they had when we did press releases there, I was pleasing our people that then put it out to all the people, and they always stressed quotes, naming as many people as you can name, the quotes, and a picture, which we did not talk about yet. They always like to, and they may or may not use an image or a picture, but they really always like, man, if you can get a picture, we need a picture. Even if it's
Yeah,
just a picture, like we did a lot of big giant
yeah,
warehouse
yeah,
deals, and they would want even
yeah,
just a picture of the building or something.
yeah.
Is that,
Yes.
and maybe that's because of online these days. It might not in the printed version. They don't need some big ass picture. You're just going to be put in the corner of the section or whatever. But online, they need a picture no matter what. Really,
And the
they could use
printed
a bunch
version
of pictures.
too. The printed version really should have a photograph of whatever the subject matter is or subject person, you know?
Okay. And is there any particular format, or I don't mean like JPEG versus obviously it should be a nice high res.
Yes.
clear picture. But is there any? Do they like people's faces a lot? Do they don't care, or is it just kind of use your own discretion? Give them a few to choose from and be
Well, if
done
you
with it.
got a building to give them a shot of, I would give them that versus the face of the CEO.
Gotcha.
So
Good
I would
input
do it
on
that way.
that. So
I would,
quotes, pictures, and I feel like the quotes in the picture are the two things that might be the barrier of entry to some other people who might be putting in for a press release also on if they're choosing between the two stories. If yours is perfectly formatted, you got all these elements they want in there, you have the quotes, you took the time to reach out to the parties and get a quote, you have a picture, it's all there and everything packaged perfectly for them, make it easy, then you have more of a likelihood of getting something to happen. The next thing I have here, a call to action. Do you put some kind of call to action in there ever?
um,
I don't know
well,
why they would have that in there.
it depends. If you want somebody to contribute to a cause, if you're raising funds for something, certainly you want to ask for the money. It's almost like in our business, you're never going to get the deal if you don't ask for it, right? So you should
And that
ask.
would probably be embedded in the rest of it, possibly.
Yes, one
Yeah.
of the graphs that's embedded in one of the graphs at some
And when
point.
you say graphs, you mean paragraphs?
Paragraphs,
Now
paragraphs,
I'm learning that too. So I learned the
not graph,
hashtag thing means this is the end
paragraphs.
of the story. There's no more. And yes, in writer what media editorial land, graph means paragraph. I should know that. I'm gonna ask my mom. She's been an editor for 50, 70, however
Uh,
long years.
uh,
Huh. Yes, that took me a second when I was reading that thing you sent me. I was like, graph? What? Why are there so many graphs? They want graphs?
no,
Yeah.
paragraphs.
So yeah, and then you have your general boilerplate
Yeah,
section about the company. So like if I did a deal with Prologis, which was is I think still the biggest industrial warehouse owner operator builder in the on the planet, I think. Um, we would always I had a boilerplate
yeah.
paragraph that was
You
approved
you
by
could
them that I
maybe
would include in there.
a 4 sentence, max 5 sentence paragraph to describe that company and what makes it, a leader in its industry.
Yeah, and that's where we would put the website again. Like maybe you're giving them contact
Correct.
info, but they may or may not be publishing all your contact info signature on there or whatever. They maybe not, but if it's embedded in the about, like another chance there. Can you do hyperlinks? I feel like I've done that where I'm sending them like a Word doc of the thing, and I have hyperlinks or a PDF. You could have it too, a hyperlink to the website. Or they might choose to hyperlink within text rather than having your website URL there, if that makes
Sure.
sense. So instead of just saying, here's their website, agentderek.com, it would be like you can find them on their website, and the on their website text would be the hyperlink that they would program
Correct.
in
Yeah,
there.
that's a way to do it. Some publications don't allow it. Few, but some don't. So yeah, that's the way to do it. That's how I would do it. So if they want to take it out, that's fine. But a hyperlink that takes you right to the site, gives people more information. That's the whole
Yeah.
idea.
Oh, and then something I just thought of, and I guess I've done a couple times, but I didn't think of when I was putting this room together, is you can always go back, because again, most of these are online things now. You can go back as the subject or the agent in the transaction or whatever and comment on it, and there might be a string of comments and people talking about it, and then if you have your profile set up on penlive.com or whatever, then you might get some exposure that way, or sometimes you can put your website in that comment and stuff like that depending on their rules or what that media outlet allows on their site. So you can always go back and comment. And if somebody has something to say about your story and you want to go back and forth with them, doesn't mean it has to be bad back and forth. But if you want to, if people are saying things, you can reply to them. And that's another way for that article to get more traction. Your website link is on that article, hopefully, and then it helps your website, your Google business profile, all that stuff. So we definitely want to not lose sight of that. And I put in red throughout my template, including URL, including website URL. You want to, at all costs, get that on there somewhere. I would almost want the a website URL as much or more than a phone number. I mean, a phone number, we're real estate agents. We want people to call us right now. So I definitely want that in there. But like email address or any locate, like my address of the office, I don't, if you're going to pick something to put in there, do my website URL and my phone number above anything else. So picture, contact information we talked about, and then the hashtags, which I didn't know about, end off and signal to the people that is the end of the story. So I will, what time are we at? 10:22, not too bad over. I have this template here, which I have changed a little bit as we've gone through today. So I'm gonna maybe change a couple more little things, and then I'll put it out to everybody with the replay if you want it. It'll just be a Word doc or a PDF or something that you can use that has these key elements that we've talked about listed at the top, and then a press release actual kind of template where you can go through, just replace things as needed. Should be fairly self-explanatory. And then that's for like a standard press release or a story. I mean, a story is a press release. A press release is a story, I suppose. And then at the end, I have specifically that commercial real estate template that I talked about. That's Derek has leased 8,000 square feet of office space from ABC Realty at 123 Main Street. The space will be used for digital marketing agency, whatever. So that one's there too if you want that one. That one's a no-brainer. You should be doing that for every commercial deal. It should be part of your checklist. If you ever do a commercial deal, that is a business, not a bunch of apartments, but it's a retail deal, office deal. This should be done for it. Should be part of the checklist. Get your website on there if possible. Contact info, whatever you can have in there. At very least, you'll probably have your name because they usually do publish that part at the end that says the agent, this agent represented the landlord, this agent represented the tenant, blah, blah, blah. So that immediately for any commercial people listening to that, if you need it, that's there. And who do you send it to? You'll have to figure that out yourself or find a PR person in your area to help you do that. Press releases like that, I feel like that's fairly easy to find on the website. Sometimes they even have like a press release button or something. But once you have a contact, I always recommend, or the way I did it, I always just sent it right to that person. Then once I figured out who it's supposed to go to, then that's the person I just send it directly to. Any input on that, Jose? You think it's just kind of try to figure it out, and then once you get the
Yeah,
person,
no.
save that person?
If you have a direct contact who's a writer or an editor, you should send it directly to them. And this is, mind you, the release is not all there is to a press kit, quote unquote kit. The photograph is another part, and there's another part that I really love. It's called the background piece, and that's a biography about who or what you're sending, and that's a whole nother piece of it, element of it, a background piece.
So would that piece end up being that it could be a separate story, or they would just take stuff out of it to possibly write their own,
Yeah, they could add
add
elements
stuff
into
in?
their story from the background piece. It's sometimes it may be a little too much for the release, so they may take just elements, a paragraph here, paragraph there to from that biographical piece to put into
Gotcha.
the story.
And how much the background piece would that be? That would be kind of like an expanded about section because we already had the about
Pretty
boilerplate
much,
thing.
it's a biography for the product, a biography for the person, a biography for the event, whatever it is that you're promoting.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right. And are there any other things that we missed or anything? You think we covered all the
No,
key elements?
the photo and the background are really the other two key elements of a press kit. You got the release, the photo, or a piece of artwork, and the background piece.
Awesome. All right. Like I said, I'll put that list and all these templates, everything we were talking about here. I'll include it when I send out the email. I don't think I can put it anywhere else. I guess it'll be in the replays somehow in the where you find my replays on my website too. But I'll definitely in the email when I send it out after this will be in there. Reach out to myself or JM if you need any help with any of this. Like I said, I'm gonna start doing. I'm not gonna do like stories, but I'll do. Somebody's gonna start doing press releases. I have to figure out how that's gonna work for everybody's local because it's not some national thing. This would be a hyper local thing, so I got to figure that out. How to find who to send it to every time. It's basically figuring out the cost to do them for people that are not, it's not the standard every time kind of thing. So I'll probably have it as a service. I have it on my website sitting there with no price beside it. So working on that. And again, it would just be standard kind of press releases, not some kind of story that has to be written. Um, so that'll be coming. Reach out to me if you have any questions, or JM if he has any questions. Any final thoughts or anything, JM? And then after JM, I'll open it up if anybody else has anything before we close. Anything
Um,
final, JM?
no, I think that certainly public relations is worth it as part of any marketing mix. So consider it in what you're doing, especially if you're doing all these extracurricular activities. They need to be written about. They need to be reported on.
And people do read that stuff. And in my in my experience, the people that do read this stuff are the people with the money. It's always the person
That's
that has the
yeah.
money that's like, I read about you in the journal, and I'm like, nobody reads that except for that rich old head that reads the journal every time. So it definitely can get you out there. Just the news itself, people do see it and they do notice a lot of times. And like I said, the reason that I kind of brought it into the fold is because of the backlinks. When you get your website URL out there, and for local businesses like us, especially if you can get your website URL on local publications, your local newspaper websites, your local business journals, even your local, if you sign up for the local business development or chambers and all those kind of things, you usually get a bio spot on their websites, and that's a very local thing. And all those hold a lot of authority with Google locally. Nationally, maybe not, but locally they do. And increasingly more, the algorithm is favoring locally you having backlinks on local stuff. It used to be just backlinks anywhere will help me rank better, but now Google is paying more attention to where your backlinks are coming from. So if you can get your backlinks, meaning your website URL, on other people's websites, mainly your local big newspapers and things like that, all the better for your website ranking and even quicker for your Google business profile ranking. So any questions, anything about what we talked about or unrelated? Is there anybody left in the room? I
Yeah,
always don't look at it. And when we go
I
over, it's
I have a question, Derek, if I could ask.
sure.
This
What's
is
up?
Lachelle, about the strategy with the press releases. So he mentioned about his client that got the sales with Carnegie Hall, but now there's not a lot of traction. So, what is your recommendation for any follow up with these press releases once they're published, or is that something we should even be focusing on?
Yeah, you move on to the next release, dear lady. Who is this? Let me see. I'm trying to figure out who you are. Uh,
America's Supermom down at the bottom of the stage.
I'm there. Supermom. All right. Well, Supermom, you move on to the next release. You know, change the factoids and move on. Don't harp on that unless it's something that you want to really go over with someone, with an editor, with somebody, or have a specific purpose for doing that. You move on to the next release. So for my client, she's now playing in some jazz clubs, famous jazz clubs in Washington D.C., like the oldest one. I forgot the name of it. So that's the new release. She won she was awarded a grant. That's part of the new release, and plus the rest of her schedule. So so there's always something new, something different. You just refresh it and send another one.
I love that. Now, and so with releases that you've done in the past, do you repurpose any of that at all? Like for content creation or anything like that? What's your
Absolutely.
recommendation on, like for example, I was on the Rachel Ray show, right?
Hmm.
And so I don't think I've ever done a press release on that, even though that was a long time ago. It was in 2015.
Yeah,
So
maybe a bit
what's
too
your
late for you.
yeah,
But
so
you
what's your
you may want to mention it in a sentence that you were on the Rachel Ray show. You're
okay.
not you're not going to focus the subject of the release on that because it's sold.
I
Uh,
see.
at this point, nobody cares,
I,
except you. So, but the key is then, yes, you repurpose it in one of the graphs,
I see.
graph 4 or 5 or 3. You put in there, oh, that you mentioned kind of in passing
I
being
see.
on the Rachel Ray show. So yes, in that sense, you repurpose it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been very informative. And thank you, Derek, so much for hosting and allowing me to be a part of the conversation.
You bet. And coming from America's Best Dad, I love having you in here. I love the name and all that. And that Rachel Ray stuff should be all, if it's not in your bio, and I'd be calling that out for sure. Just like as seen on TV, or people, all our friends that have been on House Hunters or whatever, that should definitely be up in there somewhere. So that's awesome. I don't watch the show, but I know who she is. I watched the cooking show, so that would not be the cooking show. That's her talk
What
show or
did you?
whatever.
Well, yeah. What did you cook? You obviously cook. If you were on
Oh,
Rachel Ray,
and it wasn't even cooking, it was the organizational piece because we have 15 children. And so we were part of her national campaign rollout for a challenge that she did with Peter Walsh. And so we were the subjects that did it. We had to do a 15-minute cleaning or organizational task every day. We recorded videos, had to send them into her. Um, Daily, and then we were featured on the show talking about if a family of 15 can do it, anybody can do it.
wow.
That's bananas. All right, you got me
Wow.
by 11 kids. Holy cow. Good for you. I love my kids, but that sounds I wouldn't want I would be even with three, like when they're with their mom for a week, it feels like the house is everything like shuts down. So I couldn't, it would be a big change when the last one leaves or they're all gone. I'd be, yeah, hopefully they all move back home because that's a lot to be able to traveling to see. And yeah, but you're blessed. That's awesome.
Amazing.
Crazy and awesome.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or anything, follow-ups to what we talked about, or anything else? Cool. All right. Well, I think you guys know where to find me for sure. You can find JM through me, or find him on here or Instagram or whatever. I'll send the replay out along with the template stuff in the email. And I think that's all we got, unless anybody has anything. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Music is coming.